Okay, guys. Here's another interview that Gene Rosen gave, and I want to just take this opportunity to give my take on it and expose a few things. And here we go.
I was coming out from that loft over there where I fed the cats, and I saw these six children sitting here. And
Now, let me give you some information about where his house is. His house is just behind the firehouse. In fact, from this window here, okay, these windows here, he looks right at the firehouse. So he can see everybody that's at the fire station, paramedics, EMTs. He can see everything that's happening. He sees everybody that's lined up there. Why children are here on his lawn is a mystery to everyone, and we need to ask these questions. But let's go on, and this according to what he says.
I, I wondered why they were here. And I saw a man talking to them in a very.
Okay, now he wondered why the kids were there. He wants us to believe that the bus driver was just happened to be sitting outside the school doing nothing, and the kids rushed out of the classroom, rushed out of the school, just running crazily, and they just found this bus driver. And the bus driver just decided that she was going to drive past the fire station to Gene's house. And she's going to let off six of the children. There's only six children that escaped that whole entire day. But there were 10 kids in the class. Okay? There were 10 kids in Mrs. Soto's class, supposedly, that escaped. All right, and they were just by themselves, and they were just there, and there was this mystery guy that was questioning them, or no, not questioning them. He was actually doing his best to console them in an aggravated way, and says, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be all right." Who this guy is and where he went, we don't know, but Mr. Gene Rosen is about to tell you this. So let me hush my trap and let him talk.
Harsh way. And he seemed agitated. He kept saying, "It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right." And he disappeared. And then these six children were with some adult. And they were.
Six children were with some adult. So now you have a man that disappeared, and now you have an adult, plus the bus driver. So we have three adults with six children right in front of him. Here we go.
Crying. And they were out of breath. And
They were crying and out of breath. But in another interview, he says that the kids were just behaving so nicely. They were just, almost angelic, just beings on the lawn. All right, now let's go.
it was so peculiar that I could not fathom in my mind what had happened. And I said to them, come on upstairs. Come on to my house." And they came in, and I gave them some toys to play with, my grandchildren's toys. They,
My grandchildren's toys. Because he forgot to tell you that his grandson is 2. He's not 8. But oops, we didn't mean to say that. Uh, Nowhere along this time did he think to himself, maybe I should call the police and let him know that I have some children that have wandered off with this bus driver and these two other adults. I don't know. What am I thinking? Let's go.
were very quiet. And then they shifted to another room.
Shifted to another room. Now, what does that mean? Why would you have a need to take the kids into another room? This gets better. Let's go.
And all of a sudden, they must have safe enough to talk.
And all of a sudden, they must have felt safe enough to talk. Quietly, these kids have come into your house and have said very little. While out of breath, without the bus driver, without the man that disappeared, and without the adult. Now you have 6 children that you claim alone in your house with you, switching to other rooms or shifting, as you say. Let's go.
And it just came out. These two boys were crying furiously.
Okay. Then they shifted to another room, felt safe enough to talk, and now they're crying furiously. But in another interview, they were just talking like, hey, yeah, my teacher has blood in her mouth. Yeah, okay, yeah. But this is the story, according to Mr. Rosen. Let's go.
They were wailing. I can't go back to the school. We can't go back to the school. We can't go back to the school. We don't have a teacher. We don't have a teacher. Mrs. Soto, Mrs. Soto, Mrs. Soto is dead. There's blood. She had blood in her mouth and she fell, and there was 2 guns, a big gun and a small gun. And that.
As they were saying this, what was going through your mind?
I just couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Because we don't believe it. But go ahead.
Couldn't accept it. I could not correct them. I knew in my heart of hearts it was true, but it was so beyond belief that I said, I can't believe this. And I said to my wife, until they release the names of those adults, I don't know what happened. The children.
Until they release the names of the adults, I don't know what happened. You hear this? Let's go.
Went down to the firehouse.
He went down to the firehouse and left the kids inside of his house. Let's go.
They all had been accounted for.
Okay. Now he takes a long pause and he says that they have all been accounted for. Freudian slip.
The tragedy had come out in the news.
The tragedy had come out in the news. He had already had the list of all of the people that had perished before everybody else knew about the guns and all this. But let's go.
20 children who had been massacred. And I was sitting in my chair in the house, and a lady knocked on my door. Her face was frozen in fear.
A lady knocked on his door and asked him if he knew where her child was. Why would she have any inclination to go to his door? His house is not the fire station. Who would have known that the kids were in his house?
Yeah, she was so pretty, but her face looked almost distorted. It was just frozen in fear. And she said, I heard there were 6 children. Here's my boy here.
I heard that there were 6 children here. Why would any teacher take, or any bus driver, or any authority figure at a school take children to the home of a man that they do not know? This makes no sense, people.
Is Jesse Lewis here? And I said, no, he's not. Let's go to the firehouse. But I know she had been there.
Is Jesse Lewis here? No, he's not. He knew the names of all 6 of the kids. So he wanted to take her to the firehouse. Why are they going to the firehouse?
And I went to the firehouse and I lost her.
He went to the firehouse and he lost her. You can't make this stuff up, people.
She knew. She was looking for a miracle from God.
She was looking for a miracle from God. It was a miracle because she knew what had happened to her child.
And then I saw his name. I saw his name on the casualty list. He's 6. And a friend of mine saw his picture. It was the worst thing. I wanted to see her and put my arms around her and tell her, I wish I could have.
I wish I could have done what? If he could only say what he really is feeling. Oh,
I wish I could have delivered your child to you.
I wish I could have delivered your child to you.
I know.
And what point, or at what point, do you reunite, or do the kids get reunited with their parents? And explain to me what that moment was like.
That is priceless. That is one of the most devious laughs I've ever heard. This guy knows way more than he's letting on.
When their parents came, I was so happy. Their parents is what they needed. That was their lifeline.
So we evacuated all of the students from the school to the fire station. But Gene has his own evacuation safety haven that 6 of the kids needed to be where they needed to be. Let's go.
After a day of blackness.
A day of blackness.
They were with their teacher, the other guide in their life, and that teacher had been destroyed and assassinated. What's left? Their parents. That's the only thing that's left. And their parents came to the house. My arms were not long enough to put around them.
His arms were not long enough to put around him. Investigate this guy, people. Investigate the Sandy Hook shooting story. Many things do not make sense.